Hey everyone, welcome back to Liz Fimick DIY. In today's video, I'm sharing with you my top 20 high-end Dollar Tree DIYs from this year, 2020. So my rope tray has been such a popular project on my channel. You guys have really seemed to love it, and it's really simple to put together. If you've seen any rope trays on other websites, they can be really pricey. This one is not going to cost you much at all. So you just need this plastic tray from Dollar Tree, and you also need nautical rope. You can get it from Dollar Tree, but I like to buy it in a big spool off of Amazon. I will link the one that I use below. I usually buy 1 or 2 spools and it lasts me for a while. If you're using the kind from Dollar Tree, you probably need at least 5 or 6 for this project. So you're just going to start in the center. So put a hot glue mark in the very center and then press down your nautical rope. Then you're going to start spiraling your nautical rope and putting it down on your tray with hot glue. When you're starting it, you need to use a lot more hot glue. So usually what I do is just kind of draw lines with the hot glue, and when I go around, I'll just press it down into the glue. Make sure as you're going around that you're not leaving any gaps. You don't want to be able to see anything through the plate. If you run out of nautical rope, just hot glue it down and then start over with a new piece in the exact same spot. Just want to continue your rope until you've completely covered your tray. You don't want to be able to see your tray at all. And then once you get it in place, just hot glue it. This will be your bottom, wherever the hot glue is at the bottom. And then you want to add handles to it. It just makes it look real cute. So cut off 2 pieces to use for handles. And then all you have to do is hot glue that to the back side of your tray. If you want extra stability on your handles, you could always add in duct tape to hold them in place. And I still have mine sitting out on my mantle. It's so adorable and such an easy project to make. For this next project, you're going to need 4 terracotta pots, and I'm going to start by using my Waverly white chalk paint, and I'm just going to paint the chalk paint onto my planters, and then I'm just going to wipe it off. I want this to look really distressed, and I do not want the whole pot to be covered. Next, I'm going to come in with my black Sharpie, and I'm just going to draw around the top edge of this, filling in the top so that it's completely black. To fill these pots, I'm going to add in some really cute succulents from Dollar Tree. I think these ones have to be my favorite, and 3 of them just look so great in a grouping. So to make your moss wreath, I grabbed these moss balls at Dollar Tree, and also I grabbed a wire form. You want to take off the inner wire form on this section that has maybe 4 or 5 of them. And to do that, I just used some wire cutters and kind of took it off and bent the wire back and forth, and eventually it will come off. Next, I used my wire cutters to cut a slit at the top so that I was able to add my moss balls around. Now, when you're putting these moss balls on, I tried at first to just stick them on, but that doesn't work out so well. So you're going to need to push something through them so that they fit around the wire wreath. And I just used my scissors. If you had something else, a pin, anything really would work. It doesn't take much to get through these. So I'm just going to string these on my entire wreath. Now when I got to the very top, I just took my 2 ends and then just pushed them in together, and it held really well in place. You want to make sure that you don't have any space between your moss balls. Then I'm going to use some Spanish moss and just hot glue that in between the corners. That's just going to give it a little bit more of a rustic look. Then I made a burlap bow that I'm just going to attach to the bottom to finish it off. And that's all you need for this cute moss wreath. Another thing I always see on the Pottery Barn website are textured planters, and they have so many different fun ones. Last year, I created some planters where I used spackling, and I thought, you know, let's change this up a little bit and use some stencils and come up with something really fun. And I have to say, this is probably my favorite project that I've done in 2020. I love the way it turned out. So I grabbed 2 planters from Dollar Tree, and my recommendation is to try to have planters that don't have too much of a dip to them. That usually works best. I also grabbed some spackling that I already had on hand, but you can also pick it up at Dollar Tree if you need some. And then I grabbed some stencils from Walmart. I got these that kind of did different textures. So these were only $2.97, so pretty good deal. So first stencil I'm going to use is this herringbone stencil, and this was kind of a learning curve. What I did was I just started with the spackling, and I'm going to press it onto my pot. Then the idea is that you're supposed to be able to pull up the stencil, and then you have this really awesome pattern. Well, the stencil I had wasn't big enough to do the whole pot, so I had to actually add additional to the top and bottom. The other thing is that you kind of have to wait until your spackling has a chance to dry before you move it to the other side. Otherwise, you're going to squish all your spackling. So this project had a lot of wait time. I recommend you do one side, give it 20 minutes to dry before you come back in and do the next side. Now, once you get your planters done, you can choose to leave them the way they are. I actually added in gray paint and white paint. I was just kind of experimenting with how I like this to look. I actually liked the white paint added to it a little bit more. I think they definitely need paint added, but you could leave it just as the spackling if you like that look better. Now, these definitely are not perfect because of the curved shape of them, but I kind of like that they're not perfect. I think the rustic part of it makes them look really cool. And then I added in these faux plants from IKEA, but you could add in anything you want. So this next tray that I'm going to do was inspired by these long trays that I found at Dollar Tree. I thought it was really cool and an awesome shape. So I picked up some popsicle sticks that they sell at Dollar Tree. They're the larger kind of like the tongue depressor kind. And all I'm doing is I'm going to measure them out so that they fit inside of my tray. Once I get one measured out, I'm just going to draw a line and cut them all down so that they're going to fit inside of my tray. Next, I'm going to place them into my tray before I glue anything down. And like shiplap, I'm going to leave a small little section, an opening, so that it looks shiplap and rustic and everything. And I'm just going to fill this in and make sure I have enough so that they all work before I start hot gluing them down. I decided the best thing to do would be to spray paint, so I'm going to use a white chalk spray paint. I'm not in love with this spray paint. I prefer like a Rust-Oleum matte spray paint, but I had it, so I was just kind of using up what I had. I know some people have really good luck with chalk spray paints, but it's just not my favorite. So then I'm just going to use a regular Sharpie and I'm going to run it along the edge. You just want to turn your marker to the side and run it along. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. So when I have like a little mess up, like I just did right there, all I'm going to do is kind of make a little loop. And this is going to give it character, but I don't start out doing that. I just kind of wait till I mess up and then it just kind of works out. So you want a little bit of the black to be on top as well. And then when you're finished, you can go back in and kind of add some more to give it more character if you think it needs it. Now for the handles of my tray, I'm just going to use some jute twine. I will link it down below. I buy it in a big long foot from Amazon. It's way cheaper to do that than purchasing it from Dollar Tree. Plus the nautical rope at Dollar Tree is kind of hard to find. So I'm just going to hot glue those to the ends, and that's all you need to make this really adorable tray. My last Crate and Barrel Inspired piece, I really love the way it turned out. So I grabbed 2 of these hurricane clear vases and some of these wood pieces that they sell at Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to take the wood pieces, and I found 4 that were as level as possible. So I tried to get them the exact same height. And I'm just gonna hot glue them to the bottom of my jars. And then for my other jar, so that I had a variation in height, I took 4 of the pieces and cut them in half. And I'm just going to hot glue those to the bottom. Since I couldn't do different size jars, this will give me a little bit of variation in height. Now I really wanted to mimic that white texture on the jars, so what I decided to do was get some scrapbook paper that had a white texture in it so that it gave me that sort of feel. So I went to Hobby Lobby and went through their specialty papers, and they have several raised type of papers that look great for this type of project. So all you have to do is measure out your container, and you're going to trim it down at the bottom so it fits your container perfectly. Next, I'm just going to measure out another piece so I have enough for 2 containers. And finally, I'm just going to hot glue it around my jar. And here's a look at how my duped containers turned out. Anytime I look in high-end catalogs, I always see these succulent containers, and I thought, you know what, I could definitely make that with Dollar Tree supplies. So I bought this plastic succulent tray from Dollar Tree. I also bought the natural stone rocks. I think the natural stones help to make it a lot more high-end. And then I'm also going to be adding in some reindeer moss kind of in the center. I don't want it to cover up my rocks. I just want to add a little bit just to give it a little bit of greenery. And I'm also going to add some Spanish moss just to give it a little bit of variation in color. Next, I'll add in some of my favorite succulents. I'm going with 4. I think 3 or 4 is good for this size of a container. I'm just going to cut off the tags and then remove the clips that are on the bottom of them. I think for most of the succulents, I usually remove the clips at the bottom. I don't think I've ever clipped them onto something, but just take the bottom of them and kind of stick them into your rocks so that it's not sticking out and you can't see that bottom piece. And then I also cleaned up the edges because there was some Spanish moss around the edges. Once your succulents are in place, you may want to add in a few more rocks or a little bit more Spanish moss, just depending on if you can't see it or think an area needs a little bit more. And I think this looks so great sitting out on a wood tray, or it would be great sitting out in the middle of a coffee table as well. There is no need to spend a lot of money on bathroom accessories when you can make them for $1 from Dollar Tree. So I just bought some of the containers they have at Dollar Tree that have lids on them, and I'm just going to tape up the bottom portion of the lid so that when I spray paint, that doesn't get spray painted. And I'm just going to be spray painting the lids on all of my containers, and I'm going to use a black spray paint that I had on hand and just spray the lids. I always do between 2 and 3 coats whenever I'm spraying anything. I'm also going to be adding in this clear container from Dollar Tree as like a toothbrush holder. So I'll just tape off the top portion of it. Now, I didn't spray paint this because I was worried about getting it in the middle, so I used my ink by Waverly Paint, and I'm just going to paint around the top edge of it. And these are great accessories to sit out in your bathroom. They can hold Q-tips, your toothbrush, so many different options. So next I'm going to be making a greenery arrangement, and I'm going to be using this metal tin. This metal tin is actually from IKEA. The ribbon that I'm going to be using is from Dollar Tree. You can get a similar tin like this from Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to cut off a piece and hot glue it around the base of my metal tin. And then I always like to hot glue wherever the back side of the container is. That way the pretty side is on the front. To fill my container, I'm going to use these natural rocks. I've really been liking these rocks this year. I think they are great. I found this greenery at Dollar Tree, so I'm just going to put it in the middle of the rocks, and then I'll add additional rocks so that it'll hold it in place and it'll stand up tall. And then to finish it off, I'm just going to mess with the branches and pull them out so it looks nice and full. When I was at Dollar Tree, I found these really cool stickers that were great for travel. And I thought they would look really great in my RV that we were working on. So I have this one that says Explore, Dream, Discover. And then there was another one that said, I believe Adventure Awaits. I picked up some of the canvases at Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna start by removing the white part of the canvases. And use a scissors or something. These are attached pretty well, but they do come off. You can also use wire cutters. I had those on hand. Just use anything you need to pull these off. Next, I'm going to draw around my canvas because I'm going to be using this canvas for my project. And then I'll just cut out the portion that I drew around. So with the frames, I'm going to use Vintage Effects Wash in the color brown. And this is one of my favorite products that I use. You just wipe it on with a paintbrush and then you can pull it off. It gives a similar appearance to a stain. I will link it down in the description box for you. I grabbed mine off of Amazon. Next, take those stickers that I picked up at Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna put them on there however I feel at the time. You know, just play around with it, have fun. And then with my frame, I'll just hot glue that canvas piece to my frame, making sure I cut off any excess so it's not hanging over the edge. And I'll repeat that same process with my other frame. These are great hanging up in your RV, but they also would be great in a kid's room, or you know, you could do it in so many different places. And I like to add these to the walls with command strips. I think they hold up really well when you put a couple of command strips on the back. When I was shopping on Pottery Barn's website, I found these letter frames and I thought I could easily redo these with Dollar Tree supplies. I also saw something similar at Hobby Lobby. So I grabbed this black frame from Dollar Tree that I'm going to be using. I'm going to remove all of the contents of the frame because I'm not going to be using any of that. And then I also had this cream colored paper that I just had in my scrapbook paper, and I'm going to use the backing of it to cut it down to size. Next, I'm going to be using these 8-inch letters. I'll link them down in the description box, and I'm going to be using an F for Fenwick for my stencil. So I'm just going to put my letter down on my paper and stencil it with black by Waverly, or the ink color that they call it. And I just like to use very little paint whenever I'm chalk painting, and I start at the edge and work my way in instead of pushing it to the outside. That's how I help to reduce bleeding as much as possible. But then I go back in with my brush and just kind of draw the lines up over a little bit, and if there's any kind of bubbles, it just helps to blend them in a lot better. And then, like the Pottery Barn picture, I'm just going to distress it around the edge. The picture had quite a bit of distressing, so I'm just going to do it to my liking. And you can always put your frame on top of it and see how it'll look in the frame. And then if you need to add more distressing, you can do that as well. Once everything has a chance to dry, all you have to do is add it to your frame. And I think for $1, it easily duped that Pottery Barn frame. Macrame wall hangings have been all the rage. I've seen several of them on the Pottery Barn website, but I wanted to create one that was super simple, and I like the ones that are really actually just simple. I picked up some macrame cord off of Amazon, and I'll link below to the one that I use. The thing about the macrame that you want to remember is just to make sure that you use longer pieces than you think you're gonna need, because once you tie things up or fold them in half, you know, isn't as long as what you thought it was going to be. So I'm going to cut off several pieces, and I'm going to be using this wreath form from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to simply tie them in a simple knot and then push them close together. This is super simple. Once you get all of your pieces on there, then I'm just going to wrap around the top portion of it to cover up my wreath form. And I'm just gonna hot glue it every so once in a while, and I'll wrap it around till I get to the very end and hot glue it in place. Next, I'll take 2 pieces on the outer ends, and I'm just going to simply tie some basic knots with the 2 pieces on the outer ends. I'm gonna find my center piece and do the exact same thing, creating about the same length of knots that I did on the right side. And then I'm gonna repeat this same step on the left side. Next, I'll take those 2 pieces and I'm just going to connect them together by tying them in a knot. And then if you feel like you need to add additional pieces like I did in the center, this will help just kind of fill things out. So definitely do that. Now, when you're finished, you want to cut it off so that all the pieces are either at the same length across, but what I usually like to do is cut them so that they go into a diagonal point at the center. And then to add a little bit to the bottom, you can just take those pieces of yarn and just fray up the edges. And I think this is a simple macrame piece that anybody could put together. So when I was at Dollar Tree, I came across this really cool tote bag. It was canvas, and the first thing I thought of was it would make a great pillow. So I cut off the handles, and I'm just going to make a pillow. I had some fringe on hand that I'm going to use for this project. It was from another project, and so I'm just going to take that fringe that I already had, and I'm going to cut it in half so I can use it for both sides. Next, I'm going to hot glue the fringe to the outside of my canvas bag. Now, it doesn't go all the way down, so for the bottom, that's gonna be okay because once I stuff it, it will be on the bottom part, so you're not gonna be able to see it, but I'll just compensate for the top, tucking it in to make sure that you can't tell that the fringe doesn't go all the way to the top. Next, I'm just gonna stuff my pillow. You can use stuffing that you bought at the store. I like to buy this buffalo snow when it's on clearance in January from like Hobby Lobby or Joann's. You can also use stuffing from another pillow, or maybe you have a stuffed animal. Just keep those things so that you can use them for your new projects. And you don't want to fill it up all the way, but just fill it up a good amount so it has the appearance that you're looking for. Then to close off the top, all you have to do is hot glue it down to close it. For our next project, you're going to need to get one of these plastic planters from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be cutting it down the middle. These are actually fairly easy to cut, and I did it with just a regular good pair of scissors. Next, I'm going to create a backing piece by taking some foam board that I already had on hand, and I'm just going to trace around this piece and then cut it out. Now I want to make sure that my foam board is going to fit inside the planter. Once it fits in there, I'm just going to hot glue all around the edges and get it in place. I'm going to use a white spray paint to spray this. It's going to take about 2 coats to cover the complete piece, but that's okay. You also want to make sure that you get that back piece as well so it's a similar color white, because you may see some of it coming through. Next, I'm going to use the Vintage Effects wash in brown, and I want so little of this. I'm just trying to create a little bit of dimension on my planner. So I'm going to run it along the top, and I'm also going to put it in the grooves and just wipe it off. I don't want to see too much paint on here. A trick I like to use when I feel like I use too much paint is to go back over with my base color. So I'm just going to be using a little bit of white because I felt like I distressed it just a little too much. But that's the fun thing about paint. You can add and it just kind of changes the look of anything you're creating. Once these planters had a chance to dry, I added in some Spanish moss at the bottom, and then really you can just fill it with so many different things. I used this grouping of flowers that I had picked up from the thrift store for maybe $1 or $2, and I just thought, hey, you know, this is going to be great to put in my planters, but you could use anything from Dollar Tree really, and I'm just going to have fun with it and fill it up till I think they look nice. These look great on a wall. They would be so great in a bathroom. I thought they'd look great in my camper, and I will attach them to the wall by using just some simple command strips. I found these great rugs from Dollar Tree, but they're really not big enough, in my opinion, to be rugs. So I'm gonna be making a pillow from these 2 rugs. So you just wanna lay them out flat, making sure that all of your fringe is pushed out so that it doesn't get caught inside of it. And the easiest way to put it together is just use a bead of hot glue along the top and press it in place. You could always sew it if you wanted to. I just like to change it up. Sometimes I will use hot glue, sometimes I sew it. And I'm just gonna hot glue 3 of my sides. Then I will come back in with filler and push that into my pillow form. I like to buy this snow filler whenever it's on sale, but use any that you'd like. And then you just wanna press it down, and it's so simple. You just use a hot glue bead, and it's so simple. You just use a hot glue bead to hold it in place. Just make sure you don't get any of the fringe tucked under. To add a little bit to this pillow, I'm going to be using some cream colored yarn that I had and one of my big embroidery needles. I'm just going to loop it through the top, and you can see on screen how I'm doing this stitch across the top. And I'm gonna do that all the way along the top side of this pillow. And then I'll just repeat those same steps on the bottom. And there's no way you can tell this is a Dollar Tree pillow. I love creating fun centerpieces with Dollar Tree items, so I had 3 of these glass hurricane bases and some nautical rope, and I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to hot glue them about 7 times around, just adding a little bit of hot glue as I go. And I'll repeat that for the other 2 candle holders. I'm going to fill these up with some white rocks from Dollar Tree. And you just want your rocks to come up a little bit over the top of the rope that you put in there. Then I'm going to add in these cream colored candles that I already had. You can get candles at Dollar Tree if you don't already have something on hand. And the last step you want to do is you want to put the rocks on the side of the candles. This will make it look like the candles are coming from the bottom instead of just sitting on top of the rocks. And these cool little decor stands I got from the Target Dollar Spot, and I think they make just a great little grouping. A really fun project that I did this year was a rope rug. I would suggest getting that nautical rope that I was talking about from Amazon. It's just so much longer and it's so much easier for this project. I'm just gonna start by creating a base to my rug, and it's kind of like how I did the tray. I'm just going to put it in the center and wrap it around, hot gluing it. You wanna use a lot more hot glue if you're not using a base. Once I get it where I want it to be, I'm going to use my Sharpie on a poster board and just make a circle around the poster board. Then I'm going to measure out hash marks because that's going to help me with this next step where I'm going to be creating these fun loops. I'm going to hot glue the loops to the base, and then I'm going to try to make sure that I measure it out to those tick marks that I put all around my circle. Now don't worry if this is not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, but those tick marks are just going to give you a nice guide for your rug. Once you get all the way around, you're going to start creating a circle again and hot gluing it to the top portion of all of your loops. And then you'll just continue around with just a straight circle. Once you get to your desired length, you're just going to cut it off and hot glue it in place. Now for my ends, I wanted to do something a little bit extra special, so I'm going to be creating small circles that I can attach to the outside. So I'm just going to create those the same way that I did my initial circle. I'm just going to hot glue around the edges until I have the size that I'm looking for. And then I'll just create, I don't know, I can't even remember how many I did, several of these circles. The main point is just to make sure that you get them the exact same size. So I kind of used one of them as my template to help me with making the rest of them. Then I'm going to just attach them to the outside of the rug wherever my end piece is at so that they're all similar. And I'm going to hot glue those in place. And I'll also hot glue them to connect them to each other. Now to give this rug a little bit of extra stability, I turned it on the back and I added in a bunch of E6000 glue. This really helped to hold it in place, and E6000 usually takes overnight to dry, but it gave it that really great bond. And here you can see it sitting out, and oh my goodness, Moose was so tiny there. He looks so cute. I get a ton of inspiration from so many different resources. I see a lot of faux plants on different sites, and I know I can recreate them for a much lower price point. So I got one of these little clear glass fish bowls from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be spray painting it with 2 coats of a white spray paint. Next, I'm just going to fill up with some rocks. I had these blue rocks on hand, so that's what I'm going to use. You're not going to be able to see them in the end, so it's okay. But use whatever you have on hand, especially when it's something that you're not going to be seeing. Dollar Tree had these great boxwood plants this year. They just look so great. So I'm going to be using those in the center of my plant. These are what I pick up all the time at IKEA in those smaller plants. So I was really excited to see them at Dollar Tree. So I'm going to take 4 of them and put them into a bundle. And then I'll just stick them in the center of my rocks. To hold these in place, I'm going to add in additional rocks around the edges, but I'm going to use the rocks that I want to show, which are those like natural stone rocks. And then I'm also going to add in a little bit of moss to the top of this. And I just think this looks so adorable sitting out. So it's crazy sometimes when you see how much succulent containers are on high-end sites, and these are totally dupable. So grab some of these clear fish bowls and some succulents from Dollar Tree. I like to pull off the stems of the succulents because I don't need those for this project. So fill the bottom of your succulent container with some natural stone rocks. Then I found this decorative moss that they had. It looked like some reindeer moss and some pine cones at the top, but it was what they had out at the time. I'll just put in the green reindeer moss, and then I'm going to add in the succulents. You want them to be pushed down. You don't want them sitting on the top because most succulent little containers like this, they're pushed all the way down. And then I'll just fill in with the other additional moss that was in the container. And this is so easy. It literally would take you 5 minutes to put together, but looks so nice and high-end sitting out. So when I was at Dollar Tree, I found a couple of plant hangers, but I couldn't find any in the color that I wanted. So I'm going to be using this cream macrame yarn that I had on hand, and I'm just going to be pulling off some long pieces. The longer, the better whenever you're doing macrame. So I'm going to be taking 4 pieces and stringing them through a loop. You can use any loop that you have on hand. And I'll just take it and tie a knot at the top. I find the easiest thing to do is to hang this on something to create your project. So take 2 pieces of yarn and tie it in a knot, about, I would say about 6 inches down. Now repeat that with 2 other pieces of string. Next, you're going to go down 6 more inches and tie another set of knots. So then you want to take 2 pieces of string from separate knot groups, and then you're going to tie those into a knot. I hope that makes sense. This is going to create that V shape whenever you're making this. So see how I'm grabbing a piece from one knot group and tying it to another knot group. For my planter, I'm just going to use a Dollar Tree planter and spray paint it with a white color. Now to attach your planter, you need to go back to your wall hanging and tie a big knot at the bottom. Then you can stick that planter in the center of all your knots, and the knot at the bottom is going to be in the center of your planter. You can add it in a real plant. I used an IKEA plant for mine, and then you just want to cut it off at the bottom so that they're all the same length, and then I like to go back in and fray up the pieces at the bottom. I hope you guys got so much awesome craft inspiration from this video. If you made it to the end of the video, you are amazing. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any new DIYs. I'm getting ready to start soon with fall, so that is going to be so much fun. So make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. If you missed our last video, I'll link it here for you, and I'll talk to you guys in our next one. Bye.